All right, so welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be going through a bunch of stuff about global happening. Internet access, frontier technologies, all that.
Right, yeah.
And all this with a special lens on India. We're looking at government reports, court rulings, news articles.
A lot of material.
Yeah, a lot to unpack, but I think it'll be interesting.
I'm sure it will be.
So to kick things off, let's talk about internet access.
Okay.
It's 2025 now, and way back in 2016, the UN declared internet access a basic human right.
Right.
But last year, in 2024, India still saw 60 internet shutdowns. Seems like a pretty big contradiction, no?
Yeah, it is. And it really highlights this global tension between, internet access and national security.
Right.
The UN, they see the internet as like vital for education, for gender equality, even for, lifting people out of poverty.
Yeah.
But then you have governments, right? They restrict access sometimes, saying it's for national security.
Yeah, it's definitely not a simple issue.
No, not at all.
And in India specifically, their constitution allows for restrictions on free speech, right?
That's right. Yeah. Article 19(2) of the Indian Constitution
Okay.
gives the government the power to limit free speech if there's, say, a threat to national security or public order.
Nice.
But there's this interesting case,
All right.
a Supreme Court case in 2020, the Anuradha Boston case,
Hmm.
and it basically put some checks on that power.
Yeah.
The court said any internet shutdown, it has to be justified, can't just be random,
Right.
has to be temporary, and the government needs to show there's an actual immediate danger.
That makes sense, but
Yeah.
I mean, just think about it.
Yeah.
How would you function without internet access
Oh, I don't even want to think about it.
for a day, a week, a month?
Yeah, exactly.
Would you work,
Yeah.
learn, connect with, friends and family?
Right, it's essential these days.
It really makes you appreciate how important the internet has become.
It does, definitely.
And that kind of brings us back to that core issue, balancing security with, the right to information, the right to connect with the world.
Yeah, no easy answers there.
No, not at all. And it's something that, it affects everyone no matter where you live.
That's true.
All right, so let's move on to something a bit more, I guess, sci-fi sounding.
Okay.
Frontier technologies,
Hmm.
AI, space warfare, cyber attacks, all that stuff.
Right.
It's really changing the face of warfare as we know it.
Yeah, it's a world that's, I guess you could say exciting and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah,
The speed of innovation is just mind-blowing.
it is.
AI-powered drones, for example,
Right.
surveillance, targeted strikes, all kinds of stuff.
Hmm.
But the ethical side of it, that's still, up for debate.
Definitely.
And then there's India's first ever space warfare exercise.
Right. Antariksha Shabiza's 2024
Yeah, that one.
shows that, they're serious about space being the next frontier. It's amazing to think about how far we've come. Stuff that was once science fiction is now reality.
Yeah, it really is.
But as you mentioned, it's not all, positive.
Right.
What are some of the risks that we should be thinking about with these frontier technologies?
Well, I think, first of all, there's the potential for global instability.
Okay.
We're talking about weapons systems that are, well, more autonomous,
Right.
more precise, and potentially more destructive than anything we've seen before.
Hmm.
And the scary part is that the legal frameworks, the ethical guidelines, they're still catching up.
I see.
There's a real risk of these technologies, being used against civilians.
Right.
Or even falling into the wrong hands.
That's a scary thought.
And
It's almost like we're opening Pandora's box and we don't know what's going to come out.
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It really makes you think, how comfortable are you with all this, rapid technological advancement, especially when it comes to warfare?
It's a good question.
What are your hopes and fears about all this?
Yeah, it's definitely something we all need to think about.
Okay, so let's shift gears again.
Yeah.
Back down to earth, literally. Let's talk about India's economic outlook.
Okay.
The Reserve Bank of India, their financial stability report,
Right.
it actually paints a pretty positive picture, doesn't it?
It does.
They're projecting GDP growth of 6.6% for 2024-25.
Yeah. Which is driven by a few things. There's this resurgence in rural spending,
Okay.
which is a good sign.
Yeah.
Government investments are playing a role. And of course, India's service sector.
Right.
IT, software development, they're huge in the global market.
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
lots of positive factors.
And all this is happening alongside what they call Industry 4.0,
Oh,
right?
exactly.
Imagine a factory where machines are talking to each other, anticipating problems before they happen, customizing products just for you.
Yeah, that's the potential of Industry 4.0.
It's pretty incredible.
It is, yeah.
So Industry 4.0, it's all about smart, connected production systems.
Right, automation, data exchange, the Internet of Things.
It's really transforming how we think about manufacturing.
Yeah, it is. And there's this report by the Confederation of Indian Industry.
Okay,
It shows that India is really embracing this.
that's good.
Some sectors are doing really well, like automotive, electronics, pharma. They're using automation, data analytics to become more efficient, more competitive.
Makes sense?
But the report also points out, not every industry is finding it easy.
Right.
Some sectors, like textiles, metals, mining, they're facing challenges.
I see.
A lot of smaller companies are struggling to keep up with the technology.
Right.
Integrating older systems with new digital platforms.
Yeah.
It can be a nightmare.
And then there's the cost, right? Upgrading equipment, training workers.
Exactly. It requires significant investment.
But the thing is, Industry 4.0, it's not just some abstract trend.
No, it's not.
It's going to impact all of us, right?
It is. It'll change the types of jobs available, the products we buy, how we interact with the world.
It's really reshaping the global economy.
Yeah,
And India's right at the heart of it.
they are.
So understanding what's happening there, it can give us a glimpse into the future.
I think that's a key takeaway.
Yeah, by understanding these trends, we can adapt, learn new skills,
All right.
maybe even find new opportunities in this, rapidly changing world.
Definitely.
Speaking of opportunities, let's talk about something that I find pretty incredible.
Okay.
India's achievements in space exploration and citizen services. They're making progress on both high-tech and, down-to-earth initiatives, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's an interesting parallel.
So let's start with SpaceX,
Okay.
the space docking experiment.
Right.
It involved docking 2 spacecraft in orbit. They even developed their own docking mechanism, their own sensor suite.
Impressive.
Yeah, and this is a big deal because space docking,
Yeah.
it's crucial for things like building space stations, deep space missions, even servicing satellites. It's like a building block for future advancements in space.
It is. Yeah.
And think about it, this mission, it required developing all sorts of homegrown technologies.
Right. The intersatellite communication link, the GNSS-based navigation system.
Yeah, it really shows how far India has come in terms of space tech.
It does.
And it's not just about national pride, right?
No, of course not.
Being able to dock spacecraft means you can launch them separately, then assemble them in orbit.
Right. Much more efficient and cost-effective
Exactly.
than launching one massive spacecraft.
So India is joining this, elite group of nations that have mastered this technology. It puts them in a great position for, future collaborations.
Yeah.
Scientific discoveries, even commercial ventures in space.
It's like watching a new space power emerge.
It really is.
And all this is happening alongside these advancements in citizen services.
Right.
Let's talk about CP-DRAMS, the Centralized Public Grievance Redress and Monitoring System.
So what's that?
It's an online platform where citizens can lodge complaints with the government about anything, public services, corruption, whatever.
So it's not just some, bureaucratic black hole.
No, not at all.
People are actually getting their issues resolved.
Yeah. Over 7 million grievances resolved through this system in the last 3 years.
Wow.
The average time to handle a complaint has also gone down significantly.
That's good.
They've even integrated AI and machine learning to, prioritize grievances, detect patterns, flag systemic issues.
That's really impressive.
And get this, people can now submit complaints in their native language,
Oh, wow.
thanks to the Pashini language translation platform.
So it's accessible to everyone.
Exactly.
That's amazing. It really shows how technology can be used to empower citizens.
Right, and make government more accountable.
It's a really impressive achievement.
It is.
So we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
Internet access, space technology, even peeked into India's economic and governance landscape.
Yeah, and we've only just scratched the surface.
But before we move on, take a moment to think about, what resonated with you?
Yeah.
What sparked your curiosity? What questions are you thinking about? Hold on to those thoughts, because we'll delve deeper into these issues and their implications in our next segment.
I'm looking forward to it.
We've been looking at some pretty amazing things happening in India, especially with their space program and citizen services.
It's impressive, for sure.
But let's zoom out a bit. Think about the bigger picture.
Okay.
All these advancements, the economic growth, the focus on governance.
Right.
How does this all fit into the global context?
That's a good question, and I think the answer is that India's story is very much tied to global trends. The
Mhm.
choices they make, the technologies they use, the policies they put in place,
Oh,
all of it has these ripple effects that go way beyond their borders.
so it's not just about, keeping up with the times.
Right.
It's about actively shaping them.
Exactly, and I think that makes understanding these connections even more important.
I agree. For example, remember when we talked about internet shutdowns?
Yeah, that balance between access and security.
It's a tough issue, and it's not just India facing it.
No, not at all. Governments all over the world are struggling with this.
How do you protect national security without, limiting people's freedom of speech, their access to information,
It's a real balancing act.
especially now with all these rapidly evolving
All
technologies?
right, think about AI-powered surveillance
And
systems or the possibility of cyber attacks that could disrupt, essential infrastructure.
it's almost like we're constantly trying to catch up
Yeah.
to establish ethical guidelines, regulations for technologies that are already out there.
And that's a valid concern. I think it really emphasizes the need for open discussions, international collaboration.
Mhm.
We can't afford to wait until something goes wrong. We need to be proactive, address the potential risks of these technologies before it's too late.
It can feel a bit overwhelming, to be honest.
It can.
But we've also talked about, the positive side,
Right.
India's economic potential, how Industry 4.0 is creating new opportunities.
Absolutely. And I think those things give us reason to be optimistic.
Yeah, India has a lot going for it, a young workforce, a growing startup scene,
Mm.
and the government is really pushing for innovation.
That's right. There's a real sense of energy, of possibility there.
And their achievements in space exploration, those are truly inspiring.
They are.
SpaceX was a huge success, and it shows that India is a real player in the global space race.
Definitely.
Do you think this marks the rise of a new space power?
I think it does, and that raises some important
Like
questions.
what?
How will India's growing influence in space affect the existing balance of power?
Hmm,
Will they focus on cooperation or competition?
interesting.
How will their space program benefit humanity as a whole? These are things we need to watch closely as India's space ambitions continue to grow.
It feels like we're witnessing a major shift, and the impact will be felt everywhere. Okay, let's come back down to earth for a bit.
All right.
We also talked about the importance of citizen services and how technology can make governments more effective.
Right. The CP system is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, it's a simple idea,
Hmm.
an online platform for complaints, but it's having a real impact.
It is. And the fact that it's scalable, that's crucial, especially in a country as big and diverse as India.
And they've integrated AI, language translation.
Right. It shows a real commitment to making the system inclusive and accessible.
It's a good reminder that technology can be a force for good.
It absolutely can. It can help bridge gaps, empower people, and hold governments accountable.
But of course, technology can be used for bad things too.
That's true. It's a double-edged sword.
So we need to be aware of the potential risks as we keep integrating technology into our lives, our societies,
It's a constant balancing act, but it's a conversation we need to keep having.
thoughtfully and proactively.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what's the main takeaway for our listeners? What should they be thinking about as they consider all this information?
I think the most important thing is to understand that the world is changing faster than ever before.
Hmm.
We're living in a time of rapid technological advancements, shifting geopolitical landscapes, evolving social norms.
And India is right at the heart of all this.
They are a rising power with global ambitions, and their decisions will have far-reaching consequences.
So it's crucial to stay informed, engage in critical thinking, and be ready to adapt to this constantly changing world.
And don't be afraid to ask questions, challenge assumptions, explore different viewpoints.
Because the future is being shaped right now, and we all have a role to play in that.
They'll say it.
All right, time for a change of pace. Let's look at how these global trends are playing out in some real-world examples around the world.
Sounds good.
So we've been talking about these big global trends, kind of high-level stuff.
Right.
But now let's get into some real-world examples, see how this is all playing out on the ground.
Yeah, good idea.
For instance, remember we mentioned the Suez Canal expansion?
Mm.
That thing handles a huge chunk of global trade, like 12%, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
So any changes there are going to have a ripple effect, right?
For sure. And the expansion, they extended the two-way section
Right.
to 82 kilometers. It lets more ships pass through at the same time.
Okay.
Think of it like widening a highway during rush hour. Suddenly the traffic flows better.
Because it's all about efficiency, keeping those goods moving.
Exactly. And that efficiency leads to, lower shipping costs,
Okay.
faster delivery times.
Makes sense.
Ultimately good for both businesses and consumers.
It's amazing how something that seems like, a local infrastructure project
Right.
can have such a global impact.
It really highlights how interconnected everything is.
Absolutely. Speaking of global connections, those H-1B visas we talked about,
Yeah.
they're a good example of how the movement of skilled workers is being influenced by these global trends.
Right. Those visas, they allow U.S. companies to hire foreign workers with specialized skills.
And a lot of those workers are from India, right?
That's right. India has this huge pool of talent in areas like engineering, science, IT, and that talent is in high demand all over the world.
Yeah, that makes sense, but it also brings up some questions, doesn't it?
It does.
It's like, is India losing some of its best minds to other countries? Or is it a win-win, where these individuals get experience abroad and then bring that knowledge back to India?
It's a complex issue, strong arguments on both sides.
Definitely something to watch as we think about the future of work in this globalized economy.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's shift gears again, talk about some of the challenges India is facing,
Okay.
especially when it comes to natural disasters. Remember the landslides in Wayanad?
Yeah, those are devastating.
Officially declared a calamity of severe nature.
It's a tragic situation. Landslides are a recurring problem in that region.
And this recent one, it caused so much damage, displaced so many people.
It's heartbreaking.
It's a reminder that even with all the progress India is making, they're still vulnerable to these forces of nature.
And climate change is playing a big role in a lot of these disasters.
Right.
India is particularly susceptible to its effects. We're talking extreme heat, unpredictable monsoons.
It's a lot to deal with.
It is, and it's not just about reacting after a disaster hits.
Right.
It's about investing in ways to reduce the risks, to adapt to a changing climate.
So building resilience is key.
Exactly. And technology can be a big help there. Early warning systems, infrastructure designed to withstand extreme weather. We
Right.
can use innovation to protect communities and the environment.
It's about finding that balance between progress and sustainability,
Yeah.
making sure that development doesn't come at the cost of the planet.
Absolutely. Speaking of sustainability, the Teesta River,
Okay.
vital source of water for both India and Bangladesh.
Right, but it's been at the center of this water-sharing dispute for years.
Yeah, it's a complicated issue with different needs for irrigation, hydropower, and ecological balance.
So many competing demands,
It really highlights the importance of cooperation when it comes to shared water resources.
especially now, with climate change making water scarcity more and more of a problem.
Exactly. Countries need to find ways to share these resources fairly and sustainably.
It's a powerful reminder that we're all connected.
We are, even when it comes to something as fundamental as water.
And that brings us back to our main point about how all these global trends are intertwined.
Right, from technology to trade, climate change to resource management.
The decisions we make, they have consequences that reach far beyond our own little corner of the world.
It's a good way to put it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the key message you want our listeners to walk away with?
I think it's about recognizing the complexity of the world we live in and embracing a global perspective. Understanding that what we do, even seemingly small actions,
Right.
they can contribute to both the problems and the solutions on a global scale.
It's about being informed, engaged, and open to learning from each other as we navigate these uncharted waters.
Exactly. And even in the face of big challenges, there's always hope, especially when we work together to build a more sustainable and equitable future for everyone.
Well said. That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful, thought-provoking. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep those conversations going.
Right.
Until next time, stay curious.
If you liked this conversation, then please like, share, and subscribe the channel. Thank you.